主任、朋友们，大家好。今天副主席和我将通知您最近发生的一些不幸事件，让我们听听。
有人教育毛主席，有人教育毛主席的革命路线。
毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！毛主席万岁！
Comrades, friends, I hope none of you have been harmed by COVID-19 and that you are safe and well. It is with bittersweet tone and great solemnity I announce that Wang Ming, former comrade and former Proletarian of our great Maoist Communist Party, is gone. It was at the recent trial that, after the prosecution and defence were presented, before I could counter his defence, that Wang ran. He left the server. Although such a display of cowardice and fear must not be shown so prominently if we are to be successful in any form of revolution. Afterwards, Wang Ming made serious threats against our party, calling myself personally, the chairman, the premier and the party itself revisionist. Wang spoke out aggressively against our party constitution and as such against Maoism as a whole. If you look on screen right now, you'll be seeing evidence that shows this, and even Wang Ming calling Catholics pedophiles. I will give you a few moments to view this. This shows such outrageous anti-Maoist, revisionist, anti-religionism that must not be allowed. He even made a video, to which there is a link in the description, saying this. In the MCP, we are not larpers, we are not all Christians, we allow religious freedom, and we are certainly not pedophiles. The server, the Union of Chinese Soviet Collectives, has turned from a role-playing server to a militaristic, fascist, revisionist, Wang Mingist, undemocratic, anti-Maoist Communist Party dictatorship. Wang has initiated in his server Operation Quarters, which I can only assume is a plan to destroy our party. It is with great urgency, comrades, that I ask of you that if you are a member of Wang's revisionist server, that you try and destroy it, or spy on him, and you get in contact with one of our executives, and that you block him and any other pro-Ming users, as well as leave his server if nothing can be done, and join our great party and legitimate power of the Maoist Communist Party. It is indeed unity of the masses that shall prevail, and if Wang Ming dares attack us, we must be ready. I ask all comrades who haven't yet joined our critically endangered server, including those of the Socialist Unity bloc, please do join us in this Discord server. We shall be closely monitoring and approving applications. It is strength and numbers that can prevail against Wang's fascist, neo-Nazi, anti-Maoist so-called republic. Comrades, in the blatantly unjust so-called constitution, Wang's Union states that any political or court statement can be forfeited by the paramount leader. However, it does not clearly outline or even hint at any definable circumstances under which the so-called paramount leader can do this. This means, essentially, that Wang Ming can override any decision. In other words, He has absolute power, which for someone so naive and unfaithful and anti-Maoist as Wang shouldn't exist. Comrades, Wang Ming's drama queen exit from our party is not such a loss. Someone doesn't improve after their first trial and gets charged innocent on their second trial is not of use to our glorious cause, modelled after the great ideas forged by the great leaders, comrades Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin and Mao. We must learn from its experience. We are currently looking into technologies that can be used to combat Wang Ming if necessary. Comrades, join our Discord server, especially before our next October People's Consultative Congress. We are looking for a new party security ministry. I mean, as many people as possible, if we are to sufficiently combat revisionism, capitalism, and fascism. We must militarize, comrades. We must grow and unite, and show Wang Ming and any of his pitiful, weak-minded allies our strength. Rise up, victims of oppression, for Wang Ming fears your might. Don't cling to your positions, for you have nothing. Nothing do you hear if you have no rights. Rights that will be robbed by Wang Ming if he wins. His ignorance must be ended, and his respect makes the cruel dictators fall. Wang Ming thinks mouthwash is good, yes, but only if it is enjoyed only by him. So, brothers, sisters, dear comrades, come join our party, for this is the time and place. The struggle must carry on. Remember, we walk on the great road, and that in times of great difficulty we must not lose sight of our achievements, and be resolute, fear no sacrifice, and surmount every difficulty to win victory. 我及理想万岁！我团结即事业万岁！光荣农民和士兵万岁！凯尔马克思同志万岁！我里德里希恩格斯同志万岁！列宁同志万岁！斯大林同志万岁！毛主席万岁！他们强大的思想万岁！万岁！万岁！万万岁！联合国所有国家对我强者。
Now, comrades, I realise that the Vice-Chairman's speech there was somewhat charged, and let me put this into context for you. That speech was written almost immediately after the initial incident with Wang Ming, and let's say we all had a lot of strong emotion in our system, but it's still worthwhile and valuable to share that with you. But the line of the party now is firmly, do not attack Wang's server, do not go after Wang, and let's be the better people. Let's rise up and come over this. Do not use his method of libel and deceit and slander against him, because if we were to do that, that would make us just as bad as him. We must, I know it's frustrating, you want to retaliate, but we must be the better people. We must rise above it. We must just clear our name and make sure we dispel any lies he spread about us. We'll clear our name, but then we'll move on to bigger and better things, because we haven't got time, and the communist movement has not got time for a flame war. What we need to be doing now is organising, getting back to propaganda, getting back to education, dispelling myths about Mao Zedong, and generally doing things that our communist movement requires of us. And if we are wasting all our time just on silly little infighting between communists, then we're not challenging the bourgeoisie, which is what we are supposed to be doing, and challenging the bourgeois myths that are allowed to proliferate freely if we are not there, if we're fighting ourselves and not there to call them out. So, comrades, leave Wang alone now. Let's just leave him, move on. Start the self-criticism programme, start the monetary incentive programme, and let's move on to local organisation and fully implementing the parties towards transition policy. Also about that, I'm very, very pleased to say that Premier Lucas M is now starting his own local party branch and pioneering the first local organisation in real life, in person, at his university. Hopefully this will serve as an excellent role model for all party branches. So let's move on, let's leave Wang alone now. Let's forget him, ignore him, and then keep security high but ignore him, and then move on to our party's future. Now will be included a speech that I made, not necessarily a speech, but an article I wrote that I will narrate for you, and hopefully it should put a rest to all of this situation, and then we can just move on, because I don't want any conflict with Wang, okay? At the request of the Vice Chairman, before I begin with my own article narration, not necessarily speech, but my article narration, we will now hear the song 我们走在大路上, we walk on the great road, and we'll hear the Cultural Revolution version of that song, of course, the best version. Alright, let's hear it.
我们走在大路上，好比风的江海洋，冒着心里的革命队，你看你们远方，向前进，向前进，革命洪流不会阻挡，向前进，向前进，朝着胜利的方向，万里河山红蓝漫，文化革命胜利辉煌，工人阶级领导一切，起义人民都张扬。向前，向前，革命洪流不会阻挡，向前，向前，朝着胜利的方向。我们的朋友遍天下，我们的歌声传四方，革命风暴席卷全球，美帝腐朽已经灭亡。向前，向前，革命洪流不会阻挡，向前，向前，朝着胜利方向。大海放进好多手，看到你光芒的公子乡，永远忠于马主席，红旗刺破你的入党。向前，向前，革命洪流不会阻挡，向前，向前，朝着胜利的方向。
Beloved comrades of the MCP, and to whoever else may happen to read this, I do hope you are all indeed doing well. I believe that everyone deserves to know what's going on with the Wang Ming situation, and really we need to take this chance to defend ourselves as well somewhat. I want to be very clear, I do not like wasting time on nonsense like this. It's actually slowing my writing of another article on the ontological ethics in Maoist thinking. We do not enjoy this, we do not seek drama, we do not seek conflict, we seek only to present our side of the story, especially when Wang has been controlling the narrative so much for his own population. Part 1. Why Wang spites us. An explanation is due. This all began when recently a formerly very dear and long-enduring comrade of ours, who goes by the name of Wang Ming, was brought on trial in our party on the charge of 9 counts of violation of the party constitution. Midway through the trial, after Wang's repeated denial was getting him absolutely nowhere, he took it on himself to leave the party and server rather than go through our legal process. This was sad, but we were fine with letting him go. After all, Wang despised our stances on abortion and contraception, etc. He went directly against Mao Zedong's own words on this because he essentially wanted an ideology which would permit him to meet any whim he felt, and he'd just cloak this and dress it up as Maoism. He rejected the idea that every individual has the self-sacrificing duty to society and to the collective. All he cared about was the desire of the individual. Consequentialist individualist hedonism, quite frankly. Wang would label anything that he disagreed with or wouldn't allow him to pursue any whim as being quote-unquote reactionary or backwards. He has a tendency to look at things very one-sidedly and in terms of black and whites, with terms just throwing about such as progressive or conservative. I mean, these things are so watered down. What do they even mean anymore? According to Wang, all that is new is progressive and good, and all that is old is conservative and bad. An idea is progressive if Wang has the idea. This thinking is too simple. Think of the Cultural Revolution itself. It's about keeping what is good and leaving behind what is bad, because all old ideas are not fully bad or fully good, just as all new ideas aren't going to be just fully bad or fully good. It's about coming to this new synthesis, a new but familiar proletarian culture that is advanced yet rooted in heritage. I think this nuanced approach which the Cultural Revolution provides will be a good guide to avoid the blind and naive condemnation of either quote-unquote outdated or just modern, because both sides do the same thing. Nothing is completely bad or good. All old is not bad, all new is not good. There is, in the world, constant flux. These things are struggling in a dialectic, and the good theories and practices will prove themselves. This is why we must allow debate also, allow 100 flowers to bloom, and we should not think in terms of black and white, but be a bit more nuanced, ready to listen to all sorts of views, and apply what is good, make it revolutionary, and give it back to the people. Then the people will love your policy, and they'll recognise it, identify with it, and embrace it. This is the mass line. This is a principle not shared by Wang. Thus, even though it was absolutely a shame, we were quite happy to let go of one if it meant greater party unity and a more loyal, morally agreeing base. This stricter application process we have now implemented also should prevent such individuals from ever entering our core membership in the first instance. It was sad for me, as judge particularly of the case, to have to prosecute Wang, a dear comrade of mine and one who'd been in the party from the very beginning. Yet, for our legal system to be worth anything at all, we must uncompromisingly follow the procedure stipulated in the party constitution, and if we were to make exceptions and bend it for long-term friends, so that they didn't have to go under the same process as everyone else, there's really no point even having it there at all. Anyone can launch a court case at any time, and equally, everyone is given a chance to be able to fully defend themselves uninterruptedly and come back on every claim that's made against them. Wang was losing, so he simply forfeited that and left. So we had no choice but to rule him guilty. However, all of this in itself is a small matter, and it wouldn't have even been a problem. I mean, yeah, the court was stopped prematurely, but Wang had made the decision to leave, and we could easily just live with that and move on. It's what happened next that was the problem. Part 2. Wang's despicable behaviour after departing our ranks. Sadly, it seems that after he left, Wang became hell-bent on the destruction of a party. Somehow he has knowledge of all goings-on still, and even the content of private group DMs that are making secure decisions. We suspect either alts or informants lurk within the party. Wang's determination for the destruction of the MCP has now strayed further from simply hating our beliefs. Now he is actively lying and deceiving in an attempt to bring us down. It's rather scary. The worst of this has culminated in a fraudulent message that he posted in his server, allegedly coming from myself. I was positively shocked upon seeing this waking up this morning. I mean, my own vice chairman was even questioning if I was a molester. I mean, obviously he didn't believe it. He was more just asking where the message came from, of course, but I just couldn't believe how someone I knew for so long and trusted so dearly for all that time would just turn on a long-term comrade like that. Even if we disagreed, can we not respect each other, even if we do so severely disagree? For people who don't know me and haven't built up that trust by talking to me all this time, and that's all they've ever seen of me, they may have just taken that at face value, and I'm sure many of them did. They just believed it. And It's terrifying. Character assassination is simply horrific, and to us deontologists it is morally reprehensible, no matter what your end goal is. This is why we should not stoop to his level. Let's be absolutely clear. We would never do something like this to Wang. Flag videos, yes, of course. They lie about accusations of molestation. Dislike videos, yeah, dislike them, we do dislike them. Assassinate someone's character like this, though, I mean, to us, there's just no justification. Here is a message he said was from a DM with myself. It will come on screen now. I will read out the contents of the message. This is from Wang Ming. Be careful of Matthew. He is a pedo. And then he told me to stop fighting with the MCP. Then, for some reason, he said this to me before deleting it in his DMs. Here is his ID. And then the message that allegedly came from me said, Wang, stop fighting with the MCP. Plus, please do not bother me. I'm trying to learn how to molest children from my local priest. I bet that quote will be taken out of context from this video. So, and then obviously there's a quote, death to the Vatican and cursed revisionist socialism, whatever. And then you look at that and you look at that little screenshot and it's bad quality, maybe that's intentional as well, but maybe it's just because it's a screenshot of a message, but it does look fairly convincing at first, doesn't it? But there are a few things about this which point to it being obviously fake. Firstly, the message was supposedly sent on the 15th of September at 5:50 AM Wang's time. Wang is situated in Australia, so this would equate to 8:50 PM on the 14th British time. Yet Wang blocked me minutes after he left the server midway through the trial, claiming, as ever, that not being able to do whatever he feels like is reactionary, and in his final message he said that, and then he blocked me so he could have the last word. I mean, I tried to respond with a counter-argument, but then this was blocked by the Clyde bot. This all took place on the morning of the 13th on my time, just after I got out of church, after I've been to Mass. It was therefore impossible that I could have sent a message that he posted to his server when I was already blocked by him. Here I'll show on screen my final interactions with Wang on the morning of the 13th before he blocked me, and as you can see now, if I try messaging at this time, it fails to send. The other problem is with the message itself. Usually when Wang screenshots messages, he sends a screenshot of the whole screen and the message in the context of the conversation, which you could actually see in my final interactions with him previously. And I think this should always be done actually with DMs to prevent any sort of manipulation. For the message that's supposedly from myself, it's clipped to just, well, what he calls my message to him. And I suspect a tool like, NotSoBot was used, it has a feature where it can generate fake screenshots of single messages from another user with its quotes command, and it can only do one message at a time, not conversations. And I mean, I know the intentions of this feature from NotSoBot are comedic, but it's just so dangerous for framing people, I mean, this, for Wang, would have been easier for him than having to make another account in my name and then find my profile picture, etc, etc. And it also accounts for the bad timing, as NotSoBot will timestamp the message exactly when the command was sent. Here I use the NotSoBot tool myself to demonstrate the ease of creating false, potentially incriminating quotes. Note also the discrepancy between the fonts appearing in the generated images and the genuine Discord interface. Also take note of the misalignment in profile pictures. They are shifted ever so slightly to the right. The proportions feel weird too, as if everything was too small or too close. It lacks that smooth Discord finish and it feels a bit clunky. Now, allow us to take a bit of a closer look at the images I generated with the bot, then compare that with Wang's supposed evidence. Here are the ones I created. I quoted myself, the Vice Chairman and the Premier. It even does the roll close. I was actually quite impressed by that. But then, here is a cropped version of my supposed message to Wang. I mean, I apologise for the poor quality, but you can still make out The misaligned picture is slightly to the right. The different fonts, it's a bit too square, it's not rounded like the Discord font. And the roughly identical width to these bot-generated images in my server. In fact, if these images in my server had been two lines like Wang's, their aspect ratio would have been near identical to that of Wang's so-called screenshot. How coincidental indeed. So let's look at this. It's quite obviously fake. Now, I believe you can only use this feature on someone who you share a server with, as for this demonstration I actually attempted to use the bot to make a fake quote from Wang himself, but, well, ironically enough I was going to make a fake apology from him, but it just ended up quoting me instead, and it just included my ping of him at the start of the quote from me. Therefore, he must have done this in another server that he and I were both in, and I suspect this was a USSR server, and hence the no roles, just like you'd see in a DM. Which I also have coincidentally just been banned from today, with no given reason. Just a quick note after, today was at the time of originally writing this. It was actually on the, let's see what day it would have been. It would have been on the 15th that I was banned from the USSR server. Okay, let's continue. Also, Politburo member GP analysed the so-called message and said that it was not actually the Discord default, the default Discord font, which we sort of saw earlier, and as well, it was in fact not only this, but actually the automatic Photoshop one. I mean, even more reason to believe this came from some sort of editing, or, like I say, the not-so-bot generative and actually a fake account that he made. The screenshot itself is very bizarre. One claims it as evidence that I am a paedophile. In it, I supposedly ask him to leave the MCP alone and to stop bothering me because I'm learning how to molest children from my parish priest. I mean, excuse me, what? What? I mean, this message is just not written as I would at all. Out of respect and reverence for the office, I always capitalise the title priest, as I would also capitalise church, Christ, Mass, Catholic, altar, creed, rosary, pope, Vatican, blessed sacrament, and so I'd never just refer to father as my local priest. Secondly, who at all, even an actual paedophile, would ever just add something like that to the end of their sentence? I was absolutely shocked and could never have expected the actions of Wang today. Again, today, at the time of recording, was the 15th of September. Like I say, I knew we disagreed, but the violation of trust was just very upsetting. It was true betrayal, to try and falsely accuse me of being a child molester and create fraudulent evidence to support this. What else is to be expected from the consequentialist, though, I suppose? This is the product of moral bankruptcy. Let it be a warning to us all. Now, I fear this evidence, if used against me, could potentially get me banned from Discord or get the MCP's server taken down, and hopefully, I really hope nothing will happen to this YouTube channel. But anyway, as such, we have made a contingency MCP bulletin board system, and I credit the Premier for this. He's done an absolutely wonderful job, Premier Lucas M. And this can be accessed via the Telnet, a Telnet terminal which you need to install. You can use a web one, but it's better if you install one. And the best one, to my knowledge, is SyncTerm, but you can only get that on your computer, so you might need to look into mobile alternatives if you want to use it on the go. But we should be able to use the Telnet should things go south. I've also changed my Discord username, so all future so-called screenshots should have the new username. If you see new screenshots with the old username, they are obviously fakes. The new username is 真正的 UKSR, and that in Chinese means the genuine UKSR. So any screenshots of DMs that come from just the old UKSR will be obvious to see as fakes. Hopefully now, we don't have to share any servers with Wang anymore, so we can't use not-so-bottomy. Part 3. Regardless, we do not hate Wang. I realise that the MCP and Wang Ming have fundamentally opposed understandings of morality, and as such, appealing to decency and duty might be somewhat futile if to Wang the ends justify the means. I mean, it just goes to show, doesn't it, the dangers of consequentialism. To Wang, falsely calling someone a paedophile is morally good if it helps him achieve his end goal of destroying the MCP. And the actual means by which he does this, the acts themselves, don't actually matter to the consequentialist. Yet, in spite of this, I hope we can just go our own separate ways now, and we don't always have to be infiltrating, lying, and that we can just put the deception to an end. I mean, does one not realise that communist infighting and squabbling, it only makes us less unified, less able to organise? It drains our energy internally where it's not needed. Does he not realise this? After all, what it does is it serves the bourgeoisie. Whilst we are fighting each other, the ruling class is not being challenged. Lies about communism, about Mao, about China are not being expelled, etc. This only weakens our cause and makes both sides look like stupid little larps. We want this nonsense conflict to end. To all the comrades reading, I realise that back and forth measures can seem just and righteous. I mean, it's giving him what he deserves, isn't it? But honestly, just pay him no attention, just leave him behind, because focusing so much energy on Wang and what's happened just stops our own advance. Think instead of what we shall do next. Wang is definitely erratic, yeah, that's true. He's inconsistent and he's spiteful, I realise that. And while this may indeed be so frustrating, we must remember that if he is to be believed, he has got some serious mental issues, and is therefore being so rash because he's not acting rationally. So don't go after Wang or his server, just block and ban. Block and ban. Keep security high, yes, absolutely do that, but think of the next thing all the time. Comrades, I wish to make our stance very clear. We should not hate or spite Wang. We should absolutely criticise his actions as the extremely harmful, hurtful, and endangering to innocent people actions that they are. Absolutely. But no matter if he does it, we should never stray into character assassination, lies, slander, or personal attacks. Otherwise, we're just as bad as he is. We must be reasonable, and we must try and retain, as much as we can, a spirit of charity. Wang has indeed committed atrocious acts, but that does not condemn him as a person. We shouldn't identify people by desires or temptations they face, or acts they commit, especially in Wang's case, where there are likely mental factors at play, preventing him from exerting his choice completely freely. Let me tell everyone now, we as the MCP are not interested in hostility or drama with fellow leftists. We are interested in showing our side, clearing our name, and then moving on. We must either meet Wang in consensus, which I'd say at this point is near impossible, or simply agree to differ and go our own separate ways. But what I must be clear about is we absolutely cannot afford to be frittering our time and energy into such petty disputes. Maybe the role players can, the guys on Wang's server who have nothing else to do all day apart from this sort of thing, but a party like ours has much more important work, organising and propaganda and education that it must devote itself to. But alas, when critical accusations are made such as this, we must certainly defend ourselves always. I wish that whoever reads this can be reasonable and try to look at all claims from anywhere with a bit of scepticism, and to try and get always to the truth of a matter, rather than just blindly accepting the first thing that you hear. We, for one, have nothing to hide, because we are upfront on how we operate. We have a written procedure, we encourage scepticism and fact-seeking, and this is because we know that the truth is on our side. And if this does get to Wang, which is fairly likely, I just plead with you, Wang. We were wonderful comrades. We do strongly disagree on a lot, but yet we also strongly agree on much of our politics and economics. Wang, I might not be able to prove it beyond doubt to the listeners, but from what I've done, and from what you've sent, we both know that you're lying. I beg of you, end this deceit, stop brewing up hostility, and don't generate contradictions where there needn't be any. Maybe you just weren't right for the MCP, and that's fair enough. Maybe your violations caused you to quit. Fair enough, but the MCP itself has never changed. It never will, not morally or economically. Some things like the running of a party or who's in power or specifics of procedural legislation or styles of propaganda or videos or flags or anything like this, they do have room for contention. But others, in the same time, are defining absolutes, the same today as yesterday and tomorrow. These are our standards by which we can judge things like the immorality of capitalism, with a reason why we struggle for what we struggle for. So, should our morals or economics ever be compromised, we would cease to be the MCP. And this is exactly why we are so unyielding in these two fields. And we've not changed on this. I mean, this has always been our position. But you must realise we weren't going to simply change the entire party line just to cater to one person. Understand that, please. We believe in having a standard and sticking by it, consistently and all the time, in every difficulty of every situation. That's not easy, but it's our belief about what's right. That's our line, that's our standard. We're not going to change that just for one person. Now, if you don't believe that, that's fine, but there are so many big organisations out there that have just your liberal line, so go join one of them. There's no need to try and change others. You're free to do so, just go and join one. But we won't go and join one though, that's all we're saying. And exactly why we exist too. It's because we're unique, and to remain unique, to remain having this reason to even exist in the first place, we must remain pure and steadfast. And if we were to be like everyone else, we may as well just go and join them too, in order to be more powerful, part of an organisation that has more influence and more power. But what's the point doing that if it doesn't have the line that we believe in? And Wang, I know that deep down, somewhere in your heart of hearts, you must have a sense of morality and a heavy conscience. Maybe it just needs refining. I mean, you clearly think capitalism, exploitation, is unethical. Well, what's your basis for that then? I mean, you must have something somewhere. You must have something somewhere. Maybe you should just take a good, hard look in the mirror and take some time to reflect on what you're doing and what you've done. What are you playing at, Wang? This immature, sick little game needs to end, for both of our sakes. And I know that we've both got to want that. Please, just stop the lying. It's childish and it's stupid. I, for one, cannot afford to get into a flame war. And we both care. I know this very well. We both do care for the communist movement deeply, albeit in different ways perhaps, but I'm sure that you can agree that the communist movement itself cannot afford to waste time on this either. We can both move on now. We can look to our independent futures. There's no need to make a feud for the sake of making a feud. The MCP is not here for roleplay. Trying to frame us as paedophiles and as institutional physical abusers is not acceptable, and I know that you know full well it's nonsense. I mean, hopefully the Premier will be starting up his new local organisation soon, but as it stands currently, we've never even physically met, for goodness sake. We've taken off this year and we've been held back by lockdown restrictions. So, I mean, I really do hope that will change. We're going to start those local branches like primarily at universities first, and hopefully once we have one role model, we can start emulating it all over. But how can we be physically abusing the lower downs in the party when the party has never even physically met? I mean, it's impossible, and Wang, I know that you know that. Just stop lying for your own personal gain, please. And perhaps you just don't comprehend what damage accusations like this can do to undermine a person or a party. Or at least I like to think that, because you've got to be a good person, Wang, I want you to know this though. No matter what you do, no matter anything, I do not hate you at all. There's no hostility over on this side, let me tell you that. Myself, I'm at peace with it all. Know that very clearly. I really want to be charitable with you, and I want to make an amicable resolution to part each our ways, however we possibly can. And then after that, we never even have to see each other again. Let me tell you, there's only goodwill over here. And I'm sure your character is good too. But these acts, Wang, they're just not on at all. What you did was an abhorrent thing to do to someone. And one day, I hope you can realise that fact, and then maybe then, we can both make our peace. Until then, for the rest of us, comrades, from our distant position, there's very little we can actually do to intervene, and the ball is almost left in Wang's court now, what he wants to do. So, all we can really do here is just now hope that Wang gets the help in his personal life that it would seem he so desperately needs. That's all we can hope for. Well, until the next time, comrades, I'm sorry this hasn't been so much of a positive video today. Hopefully the 70th anniversary of the PRC video will be a bit more uplifting. It'll also be the start of a People's Consultative Congress, the 9th Party Congress, so also if you do have any requests, make sure you get them in for the start of, before the start of October for them to appear on the ballot. I don't believe there's anything else I need to say, so until the next time, comrades, 再见.